Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the Ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
Listen carefully. This could happen to you. The elderly lady felt like her body had gotten totally out of shape. So she got her doctor's permission to join a fitness club and start exercising. She decided to take an aerobics class for seniors. She bent, twisted, gyrated, jumped up and down, and perspired for an hour. But by the time she got her leotards on, the class was over. Here comes Kate Smith, and God Bless America, followed by a patriot with a Pledge of Allegiance. Call in, please. Oh, thank you very much. Oh, good morning on a Monday, kind of a wet Monday out there. I'm Zeb Bell, Zeb at the Ranch, with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, along with some of our great advertisers like Western Way Services, always at your disposal. Call them at 734-6969. Right now, without further ado, let's go over to the main studios and have our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Aha, you're the man, huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay, don't let your leotards get all in a wrinkle.
I won't.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Attaboy, Wheels. Thank you much. Have a good day, my friend. It is time for the weather. And the weather is brought to you by Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Want to spruce up your home? Want to make some changes? Create an aura of individualism? Well, call them or stop in. Look for the blue door. And the number 678-6945. Carpet and flooring, kitchen construction, home decor items, whatever you need to make your house a home. Cheney Flooring and Home Design. And right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Looks like we have a warming trend for this week. Good morning on Zeb at the Ranch. Looks like morning rain showers for today. It is going to be windy. Out of the southwest, right around 14 miles an hour. Expect a high of 39 tonight, low of 28. Tomorrow, warmer, but still some light rain in the forecast. High of 41 with an overnight low of 33. Looks like partly cloudy skies for Wednesday. High of 37, mostly sunny, and 40 for Thursday, and then cloudy and 41 for Friday. Yesterday's high was 41, and the overnight low was 32. That's your weather for Zeb at the Ranch.
Hi, thank you much, Gina, and brought to you by our dear friends at Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Look for the blue door. Really nice people. We got a lot of things to remind you of today, starting off our work week. Now, I want to get over here to a conversation that I had last week with a gentleman from Burley High School. Let's see, they are going to be having that career night, and we talked to that man. Let's see, it's going to be open to all Cassia School District students, grades 7 through 12, and their parents. And it's going to be at the Burley High School, 6 to 8 p.m., Wednesday, February 3rd, and this is going to be a great evening. Career night at Burley High School. Don't miss that. A Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Want to take some time right now and tell you about my dear friends at Daryl's Cleaners. You know, Deanne, we have to stop in there today and get some clothes too, don't we? Yeah, we were in there last week, dropped off a bunch of rumply crumplies. Got to pick them up today, as a matter of fact, at 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. And Kevin and Cindy, the whole crew, they do the best job of anybody anywhere. That's the truth. No brag, just fact. Daryl's Cleaners. They can clean anything and restore a lot of old items. You better stop in and see them today. Daryl's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. Also, SafeLink Internet. They were over here the other day. Good kids. Good guys. I mean, I tell you what, sharp. I like these people. SafeLink Internet, 677-8000. No contract options, no credit checks, unlimited data. They have got us working perfectly. Thank you very much, SafeLink Internet. 18 years and counting as Idaho's #1 choice for wireless internet, 677-8000. You get a hold of them today. All right, calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. We are on now Monday, January 18th, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. An American federal holiday marking the birthday of Martin Luther King Jr., observed on the third Monday of January each year, which is around Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, January the 15th. And as you know, Martin Luther King Jr., the chief spokesman for nonviolent activism in the civil rights movement. And so a lot of businesses, a lot of course, the post office, banks, etc., probably closed today for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Okay? Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. We had a nice visit last week on Friday with Rita over at Ramsey Heating and Electric, 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. We're not out of the woods yet. I know they're calling for some warmer temperatures this week, which I'm in favor of. Absolutely. Up into the 40s, but we're still going to be getting cold at night. Yeah, it's going to be down in the 20s. And then, of course, the long-range forecast, cold again coming in. Well, you better make sure your furnace is working properly and efficiently, and make sure that you've got clean air filters for your furnace. And who has them? Ta-da-ta-dum! Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Open 7:30 to 5, Monday through Friday. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. Please drive safe. It's quicker than all get out here.
Well, that's good to know that you would call and warn people, because thank you for doing that. And I'll tell you why. Yesterday, we got up and went to church, and I thought it was a circus. Man alive, it was slippery out there yesterday.
Yeah. Well, I was a heathen. I didn't go to church yesterday. I had a bad headache. But this morning, it's yucky. I didn't take Highway 30, so I'm on the river road and it's better. But hopefully Highway 30 traveled enough it's not so slick.
Yeah, but you know what?
There you have it.
Hold on just a minute. Hold on just a second. I want to ask you something. You sound like a traveler of Highway 30, which could be also known as the war zone, with potholes big enough to swallow up a Volkswagen.
Oh, is there potholes? I don't know. I'm just always so amazed with the trucks that pop out in front of me. Maybe I have missed the pothole. I don't know. I should maybe pay better attention.
Well, I'm glad you called on this road report, because the ice out there yesterday was really something. As a matter of fact, yours truly, in order to get into the church yesterday, I had to go right up by the front door of the building to get out of there, because I couldn't, on those crutches, I couldn't walk on it. It was so slick.
Oh man, we need to get you some ice picks in your hooses.
Yeah, but then I might forget and walk on my wife's carpeting, and then I'll be really in trouble.
Yeah, and the wrath of a wife is worse than the wrath of ice.
Oh, that's a good way to put it. You ought to come on this program more often. Thank you for your call.
Okay, bye.
God bless. Oh, yeah. I'll tell you what, it was slippery yesterday morning. We left for church at about 7:30, and by the time we got there, the driving way to the church and the parking lot area and the pathway going in, I said, there ain't going to be an old fat man laying on the ground here. I'm telling you what, it was slippery. Anyway, don't forget Denny's Restaurant, 611 Overland in Burley. Oh, hello, Thomas. Hello, Terry. Hello, crew. My goodness. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, anytime, all the time, America's Diner. America's Diner. And I'll tell you, Thomas has hit a ball completely out of the park on this one because the servings, the portions, the food is delicious. You're going to love it. Hey, we're this week going to be over there on Thursday for lunch bunch at 11:30, so we hope to see you there. Denny's Restaurant, 611 Overland in Burley, and another location at 291 Pole Line Road in Twin Falls, America's Diner. Really nice people. All right, give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I want to get your opinion this morning on the release of some of the hostages in Iran. Not all of them were brought forth, but some of the hostages, including Pastor Abedini from Boise, on their way home. I believe they're in Germany right now for kind of a debriefing and medical checks, etc. But what did it cost us? Now, in no way, shape, or form am I trying to be calloused and not be grateful that Pastor Abedini is coming home. And as you remember, for those of you that are faithful listeners to this program, we really did all we could on this program to heighten the awareness of Pastor Abedini and his wife, etc. Had her on the program on a couple of occasions. And I'm so glad that he is coming back home. Caller, stand by. I'll be right with you. Mini-Cash Sales, 1321 East Main Street in Burley, right across from the airport with Zach and the whole crew. Don't forget they've got those energy-efficient Western windows. Keep the heat on the inside and the cold on the outside. All your lumber, everything you need right there at Mini-Cash Sales. Super nice people, and they bring you Dr. History on Tuesdays at 10:06. Mini-Cash Sales, 1321 East Main Street in Burley. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. I was listening about the fact that you were having challenges with icy surfaces.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever heard of this product called Romar Stand-Up? It is wonderful. It's great for the elderly. It's great for sidewalks. It doesn't track into your house. It is wonderful stuff.
What is it?
It is a spray that you spray on your sidewalks. Like if you know it's going to snow, spray it. If it snows, when you go to take off the snow with your snow shovel, it's like Teflon. It just slides the snow right off. It will also melt snow. It won't melt like 6 inches or whatever, but that last little skiff that you have that's where you slip on, that is what it gets rid of. And it does not track onto your carpets. You know how you walk in someplace and they have all those little ice melt, little chunks of rock?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, this does not track, and it is wonderful. We have used it for years. And if you will get on the internet and look up Romar, R-H-O-M-A-R, Stand Up, they've got a video on it, and it will save someone a broken hip, a broken leg, or worse.
You know what? I really appreciate that. My lovely bride, she is the computer aficionado. I'll have her look that up for me. It's called Romar Stand Up, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Romar is the company name. Stand Up is the product.
Well, I can tell you this much. It is very worthwhile for me to check it out because from here at the old ranch house, out to the barn, and then out to the feedlot, it's like a real challenge for me because of all the melted snow that turned into ice and the dripping off the eaves of the barn and everything. And yours truly can cover all 4 points of the compass in one easy fall.
Mm-hmm. And here's the good thing. They also sell the big sprayer. It's called Big Mouth or Wide Mouth. I can't remember which. And this stuff it's wonderful.
Really?
It is wonderful.
So you've tried it?
Oh, yes, for years.
Oh. Well, now, I would appreciate it if you would call me after the program on my cell phone, and my cell phone number, 312-2976, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. We'll check it out, okay?
Okay.
God bless. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Romar Stand-Up. I've got to check that out. Woo, woo, woo. Yesterday, when I pulled up at church in the car, and I kind of tested the waters, or actually tested the ice. And I opened the door, and I let one of those crutch tips slide along the sidewalk, and I said to my lovely bride of 44 years, ain't going to work. Caller, I'll be right with you. Don't go away. Don't forget Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, right behind Dr. Crane's office. And I'm going to be over there this afternoon at 2 o'clock. Yeah, we're going to start working on this old hip. And they know all the exercises, all the sports medicine, and they are the only ones with the hydrotherapy pool. Absolutely. Number to call to help you get back to being you, 678-1191. All the great physical therapists at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation in Burley, 678-1191. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Thank you.
Good morning. I was supposed to call you on Friday, and I spaced it. I was the one that called about the college tuition.
Oh, yes.
Thursday.
Yeah, go ahead and repeat what you said last week on Thursday.
Well, I agree with you that you guys, taxes shouldn't pay for it, but I think it should be lowered or something, because they come out owing so much money, and that's living at home, and, like we just barely make it over the line for no Pell Grants or anything. And they live at home, they drive junky cars, bill it back and forth to Nampa when we lived there to Boise State. And we pay their car insurance, but they still come out owing a lot.
Yeah.
And then you almost need to have a master's degree now.
Yeah.
And it just seems like there should be some way that they don't come out owing $40,000 and they're not making the money that, they come out, and some of them are only making $13 and $14 an hour.
Yeah, let me just kind of interrupt you and ask you a couple of questions. You don't sound like a lady that wants everybody else, including the government and the federal taxpayers, to support the bill and pay for everybody's education. You don't believe that, do you?
No, I don't think that. I think, but there's got to be something. I don't know whether the state can allocate some money for helping these guys that come out owing $40,000 or not, or $15,000, however much they owe. I just feel like, I don't know, I guess it's because we just made just over the line too much. None of our kids qualified for a Pell Grant.
Yeah.
And we struggled as it was, but their cars were paid for and their insurance, and they lived at home.
Well, let me just throw some things in here.
With that way.
Let me throw some things in here for you, because I'm at a lack of time here, and I want to make sure I get everything in. I guess I'm going to revert back to my college education, and then I want you to give me your viewpoint. Number one, my dad told me after I graduated from high school that he'd help me the first year only, and if I didn't succeed and I messed it up, I was on my own. Well, I didn't succeed and I messed it up. Too much party time for yours truly. Then I went to work. I went to work doing some jobs that absolutely I'd never suggest to anybody, and I got enough money saved up, and I went to get my degree in communications at another university, and I worked while I was in that university. I worked from 3 until 11 every night, doing many jobs that a lot of people wouldn't do. I did phone sales, magazine salesman. I did everything. And I'm not saying that I'm holier than thou, but I'm saying that I'm a little bit embittered looking back on what I had to do to pay for my college education, and think that today not everybody, but most of the people today want something handed to them for nothing. That's my feeling.
Well, my kids had to work also, and but they're not getting paid. Their pay doesn't match what they have to pay for school.
Right.
is what I kind of feel like they aren't getting paid for how much it costs them to end up getting their degree. And, you know, they chose the degrees and they all went, one's a teacher, one's two of them are in the social work area.
Yeah.
One's a stay-at-home mother right now, but her husband's in the Coast Guard. So I guess I just feel like, I don't know, there's got to be a solution to it. I mean, I went to school, and my parents paid for the first year, and then I didn't complete anymore after that, but my husband did.
You know,
he finished, and he also had to work, and his parents did not, they had the money to pay for his tuition.
Yeah.
But he had to pay for his own tuition.
Let me just say this, and I got a break coming up here, but I'm going to probably surprise you a little bit that I do agree that there has to be a reevaluation on the costs. There has to be a reevaluation on the qualifications and scholarships and everything. I honestly believe that, but I also, on the other side of the coin, agree with a lot of the things I said last week, and I'm not going to back up from, that I think it is the fault of too many guidance counselors in high school to push for any and all to go get a college education when it's not verified, it's not bona fide, and they should be looking at trade schools instead. What are your thoughts? Quickly, give me a short answer.
I agree with that. That there's not all the kids are able to go, and they don't all want to do that. They want to be body cars, work on the body cars of cars and go to school for that, and I do agree with that. Now, in Utah, I had a nephew when he graduated from high school his senior year. He also had his associate's degree, and he did not have to pay 1 cent for it. Now, my son in Nampa, he also took the AP courses up there, but we had to pay $500 for a credit, or maybe it was $500 for that class for 3 credits. And so, I don't know what the difference between Utah and Idaho on that scale, but
you know what I think I'm going to do?
He didn't pay his dime.
And let me jump in here because I am out of time on this segment, but I want to tell you this.
Okay.
I am going to call after the program, and I'm going to have Deanne remind me. I'm going to call Debbie Critchfield. I'm going to put together a segment on this as far as the costs, as far as the opportunities, and Debbie, of course, the communications director for the Cassia County School System. And I'll have 1 or 2 people come in, and we'll do a debate on this right on my program for a segment. How's that?
That'd be great. I'd like to know when.
I'll notify everybody on the airwaves in the morning. You stay tuned and I'll let you know, okay? God bless you.
Okay, that'd be great.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you calling back. I remember you. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Nice lady. And I'm going to do that. Deanne, would you make a note on that out there? And I'll call Debbie right after this program. Hey, don't forget Barry Equipment and Rental. They've got all the equipment you need to get the job done right. You know what? They've got all the Bobcats. They've got all the Coyote tractors. That's with a CT there, Zeb. Yeah. All the Coyote tractors. And you know what? They're kind of going through their rental fleet right now, and they're putting newer ones in, and they're selling a lot of the ones that were on the rental fleet, and you can save a lot of money with great financing options available. I would call them today, absolutely. Barry Equipment and Rental, 3 locations, Addison Avenue West in Twin Falls, South Lincoln and Jerome, and 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. We had Juan from the Burley location on here last week telling us about the great savings they've got on all the equipment. You check it out today. Barry Equipment and Rental, always with the equipment that you need to get the job done right. Oh, real quick, don't forget if you're having trouble hearing. What did he say, Martha? Don't forget to get a hold of Mount Harrison Audiology. Yes, and hearing aids. Dr. Christine Pickup. You know what? I goofed. I'm going to tell her over the airways. I was supposed to get a hold of her last week, and I forgot. I'm sorry. Anyway, the number to call, 312-0957, right across from the Minidoka Hospital Emergency Room. And if you're having trouble hearing, you woke up one morning and say, hey, what's going on here? You better get in and get it checked. It might be due to medicine that you're taking. It might be due to a health condition. Check out that hearing screening today at Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids, 312-0957. You know what I'm going to do right now? Yes, sirree, Bobby. I'm going to give away a half dozen cinnamon rolls. I mean, we're talking big, juicy, with the frosting running down the cracks of these cinnamon rolls. Oh, they're so good. From Sophie's Chatterbox, 530 East Street in Rupert. What a bakery. What a restaurant. Absolutely. And for first-time callers and winners only. First-time winners only. Okay? Now, this is a little tougher question this morning, but you got to think about it a little bit. And the number to call, 436-2244. Name the actor. Name the actor that played both the outstanding American heroes Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone during the 60s. Yep, he played both of them during the 60s. And two different series. Name the actor that played both Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone during the 60s. And you can win a half dozen delicious cinnamon rolls from Sophie's Chatterbox on the Square in Rupert. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Come on now, give me a call. Come on, let me know what you're... Oh, I have one. Here we go. Caller, good morning.
Good morning, this is Fess Parker.
Who is this?
This is Harold Blakesley.
Have you ever won before?
A long time ago.
How long ago, Harold?
4 or 5 months ago.
All right, I'll tell you what. Now, normally I always say first-time callers, but you gave the right answer and you said it's been a long time ago. So I'm going to be Joe Good Guy. That means you have to share one of those with me. And I'm going to let you win it. Harold Blakesley, all you have to do is call Sophie's at 436-0354 and tell them when you'll be in to pick them up. Okay, Harold?
Thank you very much.
Hey, now, how did you know? Did you cheat? Did you have to ask? Did you run to your computer? Or did you know the answer, Fess Parker?
We both knew the answer. My wife and I both. We used to watch it all the time, and we still watch the Davy Crockett on 21 or 28 every weekday.
So you're telling me that you're getting a little long in the teeth like I am and long in the earlobes, huh?
Extremely.
Harold, God bless you, man. Thanks for calling.
You bet. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Fess Parker. Yeah, I got a kick out of him. I really did. He was a different breed of cat. Yeah, he was, I think he passed away in 2010, I believe. I could be wrong on that. But he was a big dude. He was a big dude. He was like 6'6". And I know that when in World War II, that he tried to be a radio man gunner. He was too big to fit in the rear cockpit of the plane. And then he tried to be a pilot, and he was too big at 6'6", and came home, went to the University of Texas, and he was discovered, and ended up with both the TV series. First of all, with the Disney series on Davy Crockett, and then secondarily as Daniel Boone. So quite a guy. Fess Parker. Nice guy, too. Real nice guy. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Going back to our hostages. Did we give away the company store? I want really you to call and tell me. It is so hard to have a conversation over the release of Americans and nitpick, quite frankly, whether or not it was a good or a bad thing. But now, did it start a precedence that is going to create more havoc, hazard, and bodily injury for our American citizens? Yesterday, it happened already. 3 Americans were taken hostage yesterday in Iraq. So, Here we go. We have already made the precedents, lots and lots of money, and the release of bad guys. We released 7 really bad people. I mean, these are heinous killers and just vermin of the earth to get back these hostages. Plus the fact we're giving 150, I can't even fathom this, $150 billion with a B. I mean, come on, $150 billion. Now, thanks to my lovely bride, we were looking at how much a billion was and a trillion is, and the other day, and she said that 200 and, let's see, what is it here? I got to check this out. 1 trillion is over 200 billion more than the GDP of Australia. And if you're up there in the billions and the trillions, let's talk trillion just for a little bit. $1 trillion is enough money to completely fill a box the size of the Empire State Building. Wow, with $1 bills. I mean, when you're talking billions and trillions, you're talking some real money here. And we gave Iran $150 billion supposedly because of sanction money that they lost. You can't trust these people. There's nothing about Iran that says the word trust. And then John Kerry, Secretary of State, gets on television and said, and I'm picking out some of the words that he mentioned, that this is a positive action in process. Really? We give away the store. What did they give up? What did Iran give up? And then he said, the threat of nuclear weapons has been decreased. How? How has it been decreased? When you hand somebody a paper that says no more sanctions, when you hand somebody a check for $150 billion, is that going to stop a nuclear threat or nuclear studies to create bombs to basically control the world? How? Call me and let me know. Maybe somebody out there has the answer. Give me a jingle, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I got to tell you, another subject we got to talk about this morning, and I want to take a little survey here this morning. How many of you honestly turned on the Democratic debate last night and watched it for more than one segment? A segment consisting of approximately, let's just round it off into quarters and say 15 minutes. How many of you honestly watched one segment of that Democratic debate? I did. One. That was all I could absolutely mentally handle before putting my head on the pillow and saying, good grief. One segment. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. Give me your thoughts. Hey, don't forget, we've got some great folks to talk about this morning, including our dear friends at Canyonside Irwin Realty. They've got a team of professionals in real estate serving all of the Magic Valley. Twin Falls, Jerome, Buell, Gooding, Hagerman, Burley. CanyonsideIrwinRealty.com. Go to the website and check out all the various properties. And remember, I'm teamed up with some great people there like Willis and Jill Stone. Call us at 312-2976, Canyonside Irwin Realty. All right, your turn, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. What is the sense in putting a debate on Sunday night, right after the last football game, and sandwiched in all the other programming for Sunday evening, and kind of a family night and everything? It almost acted like the previous debate and this one, like they were trying to hide them. on a Sunday night. And what's really scary is the people that were standing up there at those podiums. I mean, come on. Martin O'Malley? Oh, that guy's never going to be anything. Underline that word 3 times. And then you have Bernie Sanders. And this is what really scares me, folks. He is a socialist. A socialist, and he's leading Hillary, the magpie, in many of the polls. A socialist that believes society over individuals. Believes that members of society should share in the production, and the net result, there is no more me or I. It's all the socialism of us. He believes in the Marxist political thought. No private ownership. We all own. Oh, goody. This man is dangerous. And he's getting a lot of these college kids. He's getting a lot of the millennials. He's getting a lot of people that go his way. Holy buckets. And then there's Hillary. What a pathetic choice. Please, I'd like to have somebody that has the backbone. You don't find many of them. To call and say that they would advocate her to be the president of the United States with all these investigations, possible indictments, criminal wrongdoing. And then she comes out and she's absolutely done a twist and a turn and coming out and saying that the police, did you hear what she said? She took another jab at our police again last night during the one segment that I listened to, and said that there is systemic racism in police forces and justice systems in general across the United States. Oh boy. That made the police really feel warm and fuzzy last night. That made them really feel like, oh boy, she's a champion for our cause. Caller, good morning, you're on the air.
Good morning, sir.
I knew you'd call.
Well, I was talking to some friends this weekend, and a few things have come up that I kind of halfway agree with them. The releasing of these prisoners from Iran and the deal going down with Iran, we kind of think they're trying to set Kerry up to step in to take over for Hillary.
Boy, now you got me. I'm kind of between the twixt and the tween on that one.
I know it is, but it was an interesting discussion, and I got to thinking, because there's no love lost between Obama and the Clintons. No. And anybody that believes that they're cuddly and warm and affectionate and handshaky, they're nuts. They haven't been paying attention.
No. But I've had this brought up to me in a conversation last week on Monday or Tuesday from one of the people that works in a think tank in Washington, D.C. That's why I'm kind of stalling for a minute trying to gather my thoughts on this. Yeah. I would hope not, but what has been happening to throw John Kerry to the forefront? He was on a couple of news programs early this morning, and surprisingly enough, guess what? He was even on Fox News this morning.
Yes, I saw that.
I can't argue with your position.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Doug, I can't argue with the position. I mean, it's out there. I don't think that Biden would jump in. I don't think that because of saying no initially that he would retreat on that and say, okay, you need me, I'll go. But Kerry is out there waiting in the wings, and I'm telling you something. I call him Lurch from the old Addams Family TV show. I think that Lurch absolutely scares me, even to some extent, more than Hillary.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, anyway, I just thought that was rather interesting, and on that news this morning, you said, no, it wasn't a coincidence that they got released now.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, well, let me ask you, what did your friends say, though, about how they would twist this, and what particular time or entry would they put his name into the hat? Would it take an indictment of Hillary for them to submit that, or do you think that it's going to take maybe more of the FBI investigations and more of the decrease in poll numbers? What did they say as far as an entry of his name?
They think the first two primaries, if Hillary doesn't win them, it'll be game on.
I agree.
Sanders.
I agree. I think that's exactly right. Iowa and New Hampshire, she's trailing in both, and I'm just absolutely... Here's what I'm scared of, Doug, and I got to do a weather forecast here, so bear with me. Give me a short answer. What I'm scared of is the American public being duped, and dumbed down to accept socialism through the idiocy of Bernie Sanders.
Yep, it's called what was that? Useful idiots.
Yeah. I mean...
And what I think, too, along with this, is that once Hillary's not going to do very good in those two first primaries, they're going to come to her and they'll say, okay, Hillary, we'll drop all the investigations and everything. You bow out, medical reasons or something, and... I wouldn't put it past.
Well, and there's a point you just made right there. I don't think that you have heard, and I don't think I have heard anything regarding Hillary's health. Now, do you remember here in the last couple of days, there was a doctor, it's Trump's doctor, he came out and he said, we're ready to release any and all reports about Trump's health. He's the healthiest man I've ever seen, et cetera, and the others, Tell me, have you heard anything about the traumatic head condition that Hillary had suffered from that fall, supposedly, and no health reports have been given out to the general public at all, to my knowledge? Have you heard anything?
Nope.
Yeah.
And I don't think she hit her head. I think she had the facelift.
Well, they didn't...
She stayed in hiding for so long.
They didn't do a very good job.
You look pictures of her now and pictures of her 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
Hillary is a very scary and clandestine figure. I mean, I am really afraid of Hillary Clinton. The raucous laugh and the phony personality and the stands that she's taken against people that are gun owners, against religious stories, against certain parts of the economy. Hillary has really changed. But the other side of that scary coin is the millennials accepting the absolute Marxist ideas of Bernie Sanders.
I know it. That is scary. That's what we get for not teaching history in our schools.
Absolutely.
They're
Doug,
teaching the Holocaust, and this is what we're getting.
I got to run and do the weather, buddy. Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Calls welcome, 436-2244. Mad River Laser at 502 East Street in Rupert. Oh, my goodness sakes. You know what? If you own a business, and I've gone there many, many times, and they've got all the business promotional items, I mean, wow. They do absolutely a phenomenal job. You want to get your brand out in front of the people and let everybody know what you do and how you do it, that is the best way to do it. They've got all the jackets and the blazers and the uniforms, and they can do all the writing instruments and everything to promote your business. Mad River Laser, 502 East Street in Rupert. And now here's Gina with the weather.
Looks like we have a warming trend for this week. Good morning on Zeb at the Ranch. Looks like morning rain showers for today. It is going to be windy. Out of the southwest, right around 14 miles an hour. Expect a high of 39, tonight low of 28. Tomorrow, warmer, but still some light rain in the forecast. High of 41 with an overnight low of 33. Looks like partly cloudy skies for Wednesday. High of 37, mostly sunny, and 40 for Thursday, and then cloudy and 41 for Friday. Yesterday's high was 41, and the overnight low was 32. That's your weather for Zeb at the Ranch.
I appreciate that, Gina. Thank you very much, Mad River Laser at 502 East Street in Rupert. You stop over or give them a call today. Really nice people.
All right, calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are. I got to tell you this, and I know my dear friend Randy Wynn over at Tires West this morning is crying on his sleeve because his Seattle Seahawks got beat. Well, I cried too because of the game on Saturday night with the Arizona Cardinals and the Green Bay Packers. Regardless of whether you are a football fan or not, that game on Saturday night, and a lot of the experts are saying, was the wildest, most weird NFL game in history. In history. I mean, holy buckets. No time left on the clock. Another Hail Mary from Aaron Rodgers. Into the end zone. Touchdown. Tied the game. Well, it goes into overtime. And you would think the momentum was with the Green Bay Packers, and it was not. Unfortunately. The Arizona Cardinals won it in overtime on a crazy play. Now, in fairness to my Green Bay Packers and the Arizona Cardinals, the officiating was as poor as I've ever seen it in my life. I think those officials drove up to the stadium in Arizona in a clown car. That was terrible. It almost was to the point where they didn't know what the left hand was doing because the right hand was really making a mess out of things. That was a terrible, terribly officiated game. I got to come out and say it. I'm not the only one that's made that reference. But you talk about excitement. You talk about peaks and valleys. And here I am, I got to admit it. I've got to admit this to my audience. I bleed green and gold. Most of my studio is green and gold for the Green Bay Packers. That's where I was born and raised and went to a lot of the games, know the players, etc. Okay? Well, when they came back with no time left on the clock with another Hail Mary, like they had done a couple of weeks earlier at Detroit, I mean, my heart. I'm not ashamed to say I had a heart attack in January last year. I was about ready to have another one. I'm laying on the floor, writhing around. And my wife, that says, I hate sports. I can't stand it all the time. She's sitting on the edge of her chair just absolutely sweating and yelling and screaming, come on, Green Bay, come on. Don't you ever believe that she's not a sports fan. Ha, ha, ha. My goodness. And then to have the Cardinals come back and win like they did, congratulations to them. Excellent football team. But I was sure hoping that Green Bay would have a chance to go on, hopefully with another victory and then on to the Super Bowl. Not going to happen this year. But I will tell you this, they made it interesting, and they sure made it fun watching. Holy cow. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. My poor old geezer chair. You know, I'm going to have to go get a new one. I think the springs and the wicker bill on the side that you use, kind of like the stick on the side to put your legs up and let them down, I think I snapped that dude off. Man, I was excited. I was rolling around on the floor. I tell you what, I really get into it. And my poor Aunt Miriam back in Wisconsin, I hope somebody goes over and checks on her this morning. Anyway, if you're not traction ready, you better be, because we'll probably have some more snow. We'll have some more ice. We'll have some more muck. All of that stuff. Well, you'd better be traction ready with all the different tread designs and tires from your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. They got them all of them. Just go on in there, and they're all graduates of tireology, and they can find the right tires for your kind of driving. And, of course, I want to talk a little bit this morning, too, about their brake service. Man, professionally trained technicians, free brake inspections and estimates, and premium quality parts if you need to have your brakes fixed. Yep, they're the best. Front-end alignment, shocks and struts, wheels, snow wheels, batteries, you name name it, it's all there. At your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers with Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, John on Poline in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland in Burley. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. The best. Excuse me. Outstanding games. I probably will catch some flack over this, but I was really hoping that the Pittsburgh Steelers would win yesterday over the Denver Broncos. I know a lot of you people out here in the audience are Denver Bronco fans, and you're going, oh, that's a bell. Well, I just thought that the Steelers had really overcome a lot of adversity and injury. I mean, man, they were like a mash unit all year long with injuries and everything, and I thought they were going to win that game. But kudos to the Denver Broncos. They won. But I'm not giving kudos in any way, shape, or form to the New England Patriots. I don't like the coach Bill Belichick, and I certainly don't like the quarterback Tom Brady. And I hope the Broncos I hope the Broncos beat the Patriots and go on to the Super Bowl. I can be a turncoat in a hurry. I just kind of denigrated the Denver Broncos. Now I'm in favor of them because I don't like Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. And so my prediction will be, listen carefully, the Cardinals and the Broncos in the Super Bowl. Hope I'm not wrong. We're going to take a little break, and in just a second or two, we're going to turn it back over to Wheels and let him lead us into the big news coming up at the top of the hour. Coming up next hour, we've got Joe Messina. We're going to talk about the refugees in our country and across the world and the problems that they're causing. And then at 9:30, the wonderful, beautiful Carrie Kupek with the Alliance Defending Freedom. A couple of stories that'll just make the hair on the back of your neck stand up mad. And then at 10:06 this morning, Idaho Speaker of the House, Scott Bedke, with the Idaho Legislative Update. And then at 10:32, good guy, Fred Birnbaum, coming back again with the Idaho Freedom Foundation. And all kinds of things this morning right here on Zeb at the Ranch. We'll be back in about 6 minutes. Welcome back. Hour number 2 on a Monday. Always hard to get back into the saddle on a Monday. Holy smokes. I had too much fun and too much relaxation over the weekend. Zeb at the Ranch. I'm Zeb Bell with our major sponsor. And, of course, that's your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you, and along with some of our great advertisers like Western Waste Services.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always assured to serve Western Waste Services. We care about our community, our resources, and this great land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal. Western Waste Services.
Let's talk about the route service a little bit today. Very, very dependable. Once a week coming there and picking up your garbage, it's gone. And you don't have a thing to worry about. Locally owned and operated Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Call them today at 734-6969, Western Waste Services. Also, want to remind you about our dear friends every morning when we sign on at 8:06, Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Look for the blue door. All your carpet and flooring, kitchen construction, home decor items, whatever you need to make your house a home, got it right there at Cheney Flooring and Home Design, bringing you the weather forecast every morning when we start off Zeb at the Ranch. Thank you very much. Right now, let's go to the phone lines, and we're going to have a fellow broadcaster and author on the phone with us right now, Joe Messina. Joe, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm not bad. I was reading a little update about your radio program, and quite frankly, our careers are quite a bit similar to some respects, but give us a little background on Joe Messina, who we're listening to and why. Tell us about yourself.
Well, I started off, I don't know, we're coming up on 7 years, so I'm a newbie in the business, I guess. And I was asked to fill in for a host that didn't show up. And so I grabbed a Republican, I grabbed a Democrat, I became the agitator, and got them both going. And Didn't think it was anything special, but the station owner came out and said, you know what, I think we can do something with this. So we started off with an hour a week, and then we went to 2 hours a week, and then we went to 3 hours a week, and then we went to 5 days a week.
Well, man, you're...
Now, the only thing is I haven't hit the $1 million mark. Have you?
Oh, yeah, many times over. Are you kidding me? We're in the radio business. What's the matter with you? No, seriously, I've been in this industry, Joe, now for 46 years. I'm an old timer, and I've been blessed. I mean, along with this, I had an announcing a schedule and career that took me all over the United States, Canada, and the world, that's for that matter. So I've been blessed, and I wish you a lot of success. But one of the topics I wanted to have you on about this morning is the refugee crisis. I'm not going to call it anything but what it is, a crisis, not only in Europe, but also expanding here into the United States. Give us a little background on your thoughts about this.
Well, I understand. Let's start off with this. I understand that we do have honest, earnest refugees coming in from all over the world. Okay, people are fleeing some of the issues that they're having, fleeing their governments, fleeing the violence. So I don't want to make it sound like I don't believe in refugees at all. Matter of fact, my grandmother was a quote-unquote refugee from Italy during World War II, for all intents and purposes. Came to this country for a better life, for a safer place. All right, so I just want people to understand I don't hate refugees. But when you look at what's happening, let's just talk about Europe. When you look at what's happening in Europe, and you look at these quote-unquote refugees that are coming in, they've seen an uptick. Since refugees started coming into Europe, they've seen an uptick in violence, specifically against women, and specifically as it pertains to rape. Now, what I think is funny is, you're not hearing about it. Matter of fact, this is great timing, because I think over the weekend there was actually a demonstration in Germany or France. I can't remember. I forgot about it. But anyway, it's in Germany or France is where they had a demonstration just this weekend. And I think 2 weeks ago they had another one in Germany where the people living there are saying, wait a minute, we don't have a problem helping these people. We don't have a problem helping refugees. But now what we're looking at, or what you're shoving down our throats, are people that are trying to change our culture, trying to change our way of life, and are coming in here and being violent and asking for things. I think one group wanted $2,000 a month or 2,000 euros a month, whatever it was, or else they were going back. And my attitude was, send them back. How ungrateful can you be?
Yeah.
People bring you in to help you. People bring you in to save you from what you've got going on, and you want more. I don't know. In Germany, there was over 100 filed complaints of rape and assault over the new year alone. And when the police started doing their investigation, they were able to identify over 1,000 male refugees that were involved in these 100-plus rapes. They're out there in rape gangs. The mayor of a German city, I thought this was great in a funny way, a mayor of a German city called Cologne, where many of the assaults took place, suggested that women were at fault. Now, can you imagine you or I on the phone saying, I saw some of the pictures, and let me tell you what, the way those women were dressed, of course they're going to be raped. That's you dress like that, that's what's going to happen. They would crucify us.
That's right.
Your career would be gone, and so would mine.
That's right.
But here's a mayor of a city who's suggesting that women are asking for this. They're bringing it on, the way they carry themselves, the way they dress.
We
have gone out of our way. It's almost like we're afraid to say anything if they're Muslims. We're afraid to say anything if they're of the Islamic faith. It's just amazing to me how afraid we've become, how polarized we've become, not even as Americans, if people all over the world afraid to say anything against these people.
Well, now, Joe, let's go after that subject just a little bit and kind of tear it apart and chew it up a little bit. Number one, we are being inundated with the concepts of accepting an ideology from a religion of the Middle East that has been very, very warring, if you will, over thousands and thousands of years. And their hatred towards Christians and any and all
all other religions is absolutely prominent. But I'm a little bit sick and tired of being told that I'm a hate monger and a bigot because in our area they're trying to bring in the Syrian refugees into this area. There is not a vetting system because there is no way to vet these people. They're coming from war-torn countries, no computer systems, no background files, etc. And I'm going to come right out and say it. I, along with Donald Trump and many others, are saying, wait a minute, let's have a temporary hold until we get more information. How would you respond to that?
Well, it would make for boring radio because I'm on your page. Look, we have many military camps that are closed. We have many areas that are closed that we could bring these people into until they were vetted. It might take years to vet them. If they don't have proof of who they are, or if they don't have a way to, there's got to be a connection somewhere. Now, one of the things that bothered me, I don't know if you saw the pictures when they were coming into the country or into these different countries, it was almost like it was 15-1. And when I say that, I mean 15 men to every one woman coming in. And I'm saying to myself, man, if families are running away from this, if they're trying to get away from their war-torn areas, where are the families? All I'm saying is the large groups of men. And yeah, there has to be a way to vet these people. There has to be a way before you just release them into society. And again, I don't know about you, but my government would have to really sell me a vetting system that I think worked, because look how well it worked with the people coming over our border from the south. You've got 92% of those people that were given notices to appear. 92%. You check with the government, haven't shown up for their immigration hearings. And we don't know where they are.
Yeah.
So now what? We're going to bring in the Syrian refugees. We're going to allow them to temporarily roam the country until we can vet them. Seriously?
Yeah. Joe, let me throw this at you.
There's got to be a way to, first job, protect our people. How do we do that?
Yep. Let me throw this at you, Joe. In the years gone by in our history, and I think you'll agree with this, when people came to this country, immigrants, there was a melting pot philosophy to assimilate into the great American culture. Whether it was in New York, whether it was in Chicago, whether it was out west, assimilate into the American culture. I don't see that anymore. I see a demand to change and diminish our culture, and that's what really fears me. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're right on. Look, again, like I said earlier, I came from that culture. My grandparents were from Italy. They were proud Americans of Italian descent. I'll put it that way, because as a kid, I remember it was very important to understand America, to understand what it was like to live the American dream. I heard that at the table. Now, I'd like to say they were proud Italians. I don't want people to get the wrong idea. They loved where they grew up. They loved where they were born. But they also loved the fact that this country gave them a whole new start. And they took on some American culture. But they never lost their Italian heritage. Do you know what I mean? They taught us about the culture. They taught us about what they did as kids and how they grew up and some of the traditions that they had. But they were in America now.
Yeah.
It was all about being an American. I don't see that with a lot of these other people. And you're right. You lose, or they think coming here, they bring their way of life here. The thing I've never understood is, you're trying to get away from something. Why are you bringing it with you?
Right. Joe, what about the administration currently with Obama, John Kerry, etc., and the admonishment to us, the citizens of this country, that we're all wrong? We shouldn't have any concerns. We shouldn't have any worries. We should just open the floodgates, no borders. That's what the left wants, so they can increase their voting base, but nothing as far as any prohibitive action to make sure that we know who these people are or to curtail the numbers. Pretty soon you're going to load too many people on the boat and it's going to sink. What are your thoughts?
I'm laughing because these are this week's piece is all about this kind of thing. These are the same guys that brought you, Obamacare, which now we're finding out that the premiums are upside down, the deductibles are out of control, and people who are supposed to be able to afford it can't afford it. You've got these exchanges that are going belly up. I just love it. Everything they've brought to the table has just kind of sunk and failed, if you would. You look at Iran. Over the weekend, Iran was certified by the UN that they've met all the requirements to release the sanctions. However, it wasn't UN inspectors that verified it. It was Iran that verified it. They called the UN and said, yeah, we're good. Okay? And this administration is eating that. They're swallowing that. They're not looking to protect us. You look at the people at the top, and you look at their, as you said, the very open, socialist kind of viewpoint towards life. And you're right, no borders. We're an open. We are now a global society. Everybody's an American. Everybody's a Spaniard. Everybody's a Greek. And it doesn't. What happens to sovereignty at that point in time? What happens to rule of law at that point in time? No, these. I don't believe, with the exception of Obama, I don't believe any one of those guys are out to hurt the country. I think they really, truly believe this is a way to make us a better player in the global world. I think they believe that this is a better way to make us a better country, better human beings by opening it up like this. But they really do. They will say to you, look, if you're talking about the refugees that are causing trouble in Europe, it's a very small percentage of the millions coming in. Well, it's a very small percentage that we know of. Britain just admitted to the fact that they hid 1,500 rapes over the holiday season.
Right.
Or a little over 1,500. Why are you hiding them if it's okay? If you think this is the right way to live, if you think this is the right process, what are you hiding?
Joe, what our situation is in this country, and I'd like you to elaborate on this just a little bit as before we end the time here this morning. We have established, not myself personally because I'm against it, but there has been an establishment of a liberal mindset. Oh, come on in, you're welcome. Oh, come on in, we'll pay for it. Oh, come on in, we've got plenty of room. The liberal mindset. Now, with this election coming up this next year in 2016, have the American public been so brainwashed into this liberal mindset and acceptance that a conservative can never take over office and try to change things back the way I think they should be?
Yeah, I don't, you know what, I don't know about your crystal ball, but mine doesn't work. And they said the same thing, that Reagan would never make it, that he was too conservative for the job. You know, we've got, 30-some-odd governors that have taken over states that were predominantly liberal, if you would, or Democrat, or what have you. I think we can take it back. I don't know if we can take it back with a hardcore, outspoken, right-wing conservative, if you would. And I'm that. I'm an outspoken right-wing conservative. But if you look at the way Reagan always presented the speech, if you would, it was always about being an American. It was always about being a proud American. And he always laid out the great things that this country did for its people and for other countries. So no matter what he got into, got into the meat of his speech or the way he spoke to us, you were already feeling good about being an American. I don't see that in any of the candidates we have. That's my only fear. You know, I think Trump has brought a world of positive things to the conversation, to the table. Do I want to vote for him? Not really, I've got to tell you. Not really. Speaks too general for me. No real hardcore plans. But he's causing the candidates to have to speak about things they normally would give each other a pass on. I think that Jeb Bush would have been higher up in the rankings if Trump wasn't in the race. So this is not your grandfather's debate. This is not your grandfather's election cycle. I think he has changed this tremendously. Can conservatives win and take it back? Yes, I believe they can. But I got to tell you something else. Think about this. We have to do something when we get in.
That's true.
We got control 2 years ago, and we've virtually done nothing as a legislative body. Don't you agree?
I do. And I'll tell you something else that scares me, and I've only got about 2 minutes left here, Joe, but it's the acceptance of the millennials and the college students and the younger generation that we are bad people, that capitalism is bad. When you see the numbers of a socialist, an avowed socialist and Marxist like Bernie Sanders that may win Iowa and New Hampshire, I don't know about you, but that puts a cold ice cube down the back of my Wranglers.
No, you and I are on the same page. I do a lot of stories about millennials. They concern me greatly. They don't believe in organized religion. They don't believe in an organized government. And there's a lot of things that they feel should be open. And it's totally opposite, 180 degrees different than what this country was built on and made strong on. So you're exactly right. You should be concerned.
Tell us a little bit about your radio program real quick. How many days you're on, 5 days a week, and how can people check you out so that we can tune in sometime?
If you go over to therealside.com, you're going to find out stations and times and that kind of thing. We are 5 days a week, 3 hours a day, and I would appreciate it. Take a listen. I think you'll enjoy. You'll find something. I do a whole bunch of social issues that'll make you cringe. I guarantee it.
I tell you
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the time.
You better come back in the future, Joe. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. God's blessings to you, and I'll be in touch. Thank you.
God bless you, too.
All right, sir. Thank you. Joe Messina on our program this morning and talking about the refugees and all the rapes and the assaults and the crimes, and not only in Germany but other parts of Europe. I'll tell you what, folks, it wouldn't take much pushing from me at all to really have me say, stop all the way. Nobody coming into this country. You know what? I got criticized last week. I remember I had a phone call and they said, well, you're just like Donald Trump. You're against different religions. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. But I am very, very sincere in being cautious right now because we don't know who these people are. You just heard Messina say just a few minutes ago that it's like 15-to-1 ratio young men coming in. Whoa, wait a minute. Why? Why? I'm worried about this. I want to know who they are, what they represent, what they did, etc., on their past. That's being cautious and wary and protective of our country and our culture. You got these nincompoops that say, come on in, everybody, come on in. No, I'll never be one of those. Ever. All right, calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I want to remind you about some dear, dear friends of ours, and that, of course, is Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert, with a very nice man, Joel Heward, his family, and his staff, serving you. You know, when there's the passing of a loved one, you know this. Everything just is thrown in turmoil, and there's so much to do in such a short period of time. Well, they can help you with all the arrangements, and they will come to you for the help, too. Always with the highest ethical standards, with unquestioned integrity. Please write the number down and call them for more information. Hanson Mortuary, 436-5636. These folks really do mean it when they say they want to be of service to you. Hanson Mortuary. Also, let me get my book here. I want to remind you about all my friends over at Let's Ride. Man, I tell you, I can't wait to get back on my four-wheeler. The only thing I'm using my four-wheeler right now is to take straw out into the feedlot and throwing straw around to the steers and everything. I'll tell you what, I can't wait to hit the hills again because Let's Ride, 270 Highway 24, between Rupert and the World is where the fun is sold. Oh, my goodness. They've got snow machines. They've got your winter clothing, and it's discounted right now. And they've got all your ATVs and all the accessories, everything. When you walk in that front door, yeah, you're going to say, woo! This is where the fun is sold, and that's true. And by the way, too, they've got a great customer service department, too. Shop in today, 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World. Let's Ride, where the fun is sold. Nice people. By the way, I did not get this on the first hour, and I'm sorry about that. I neglected to get this on. I was going to put it on every hour today. Excuse me. The American Legion Post 82 and the American Legion Auxiliary Unit 82 in Eden is hosting that spaghetti dinner fundraiser for the Jim Coleman family. They lost everything in a house fire a couple of weeks ago, and it's going to be this coming Saturday, January 23rd, from 4 to 8 p.m. at the Snug Bar and Grill on West Wilson in Eden. And the cost is $10, with 100% of the proceeds going going to the Colemans, and there's also going to be a silent auction and live music starting at 7 p.m. with Gina Jones. And if you'd like to contribute, now I think this is still in effect. I might check it out. The Facebook page for the city of Hazleton is running exactly what the Colemans need as far as donations, as far as clothing, as far as furniture, and of course cash donations. So go on the Facebook page for the city of Hazleton and they can help you out, okay? Really nice people that need our assistance. I know some other people too that are helping people, and that's Cameron and Siemens Insurance. When you think about life insurance, think about Cameron and Siemens. Yep, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits, they've got it all at Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Number to call, 436-4424. Yes, they're very devoted to serving you. Please call for an appointment today to make sure that you're protected. 436-4424, Cameron and Siemens Insurance. Wow, I hope you had a great weekend. We did. Fantastic weekend. And had a chance to ride the horses a little bit and get some exercise. That's why I'm a little stiff and sore this morning. Anyhow, I also want to remind you about our dear friends at Red's Trading Post. Before we go to our next guest, Gary Kupek, I want to remind you, Red's Trading Post in Old Town, historic Old Town, Twin Falls, since 1936. That was a long time ago. And, of course, they're located at 203 5th Avenue South in Twin Falls. And they've got all the firearms. They've got all the Browning, Beretta, Weatherby, Ruger, Benelli, Smith & Wesson, and Winchester. And the people that know those guns too. I mean, they've got a great staff. All the ammo, all the accessories, and for those of you that do your own reloading, they've got that hard to find powder too. Right there at Red's Trading Post, 203 5th Avenue South in Twin Falls. You stop in and see them today. There is a lovely lady, once a week comes on this program. Excuse me, I still have that little cold or whatever in my throat, so I apologize for clearing my throat on the air. Her name is Carrie Kupek with the Alliance Defending Freedom, and I always kind of kid her a little bit, and I say, Carrie, you really got my dander up on some stories this morning. So I will say this morning, Carrie, you really got my dander up on a couple of stories this morning. How are you?
Good. You know I like to keep things interesting, right, on a Monday morning?
I'll tell you what, I read these stories and I slammed my fist down on the desk and I said, I can't wait to talk to you. What is going on up in New York where a business can't even make decisions for their own personal business? What's happening up there?
Yeah, this is a really upsetting one. I'm from New York and I've been to this farm where this is all happening, and it really shouldn't be happening, and it is. And we have a situation there where you have Bob and Cynthia Gifford, and they own a farm. They live on this farm. They have owned it for many, many years. The farm is their life, and a number of years ago they opened it up to make a little bit of an extra income to people in their community for family festivals around October and just those things that you typically see, pumpkins and hay rides and things like that. And people started noticing how beautiful their farm and their space was, and so they started getting inquiries about people who wanted to have their weddings on their property, and essentially in their backyard. Rob and Cynthia live there, obviously, and they live in a house, and it's actually a barn that they have built themselves, so they live there. And so they opened it up to, some weddings here and there, and what ended up happening, though, is a same-sex couple called Cynthia and asked if they could have their wedding there. And to be clear, Cynthia, they allow same-sex wedding receptions, but they just don't allow same-sex wedding ceremonies because that would be a violation of their Christian faith and their beliefs. Right. And so Cynthia very politely informed the person of the way they do things, and they ended up getting sued. And this has gone now through a couple of courts in New York, and they have lost the entire time, and they're being fined $13,000 and being ordered to have re-education training designed to essentially contradict their beliefs about marriage.
You said so many things that I'm just sitting here fuming about. Let's back up a little bit. I will say this, and I'd like you to tell me I'm wrong, but it looks to me that within the last 5 or 6 years, more predominantly than ever, the gays, lesbians, and transgenders who have very deep pockets and tons of money are just looking for places that they can go and throw a lawsuit around to further their cause. And this looks like one of those.
Yeah, and the reality is that regardless of where you stand on issues of sexual orientation, issues of marriage, I think everyone should rally around a very common sense principle that every American should be free to live and work according to their beliefs, especially when we're talking about someone's own backyard, which is what this is. You know, like I said, they live in a barn that they have built on their farm, and they've actually occasionally even hosted weddings on the first floor of their home and in the surrounding backyard area. And Cynthia is involved in the entire wedding process. She's a wedding coordinator, so from soup to nuts, she essentially does everything but officiate the ceremony. You know, Robert is picking up guests and driving them around. It's just, they are very hands-on. They work around the clock. The farm is their life. It's their home. It's what they love. It's been in their family for a long time. And for the government to come in and force them to violate their conscience this way in their own home, on their own property, is just so deeply troubling.
Carrie, now let's kind of tear this apart a little bit. It looks to me like this would be a no-brainer for most courts, but when you take away the rights for business owners and put them basically under a federal control that thou wilt do this, have we eliminated our system and gone to socialism? That's what it sounds like.
Right. It's the government ideology. You must agree with the government's philosophy on what really is a very religious, sacred institution, or they are going to run you out of their lives, your careers. You know, we're seeing this happening all across the country, and it's so concerning. You know, in a diverse melting pot like the United States, especially like New York, there should be room, and there is room for people to live peacefully with each other and, you know, have these beliefs and be able to operate consistently with their religious faith and operate consistently with who they are. Tolerance is a two-way street, but unfortunately that's not what we're seeing anymore.
Okay, now I've saved this one for the last of this story because I think it's going to take more time. You know my personality. You know my wife. We've talked many, many times off the air, but for a court to find them guilty of sexual orientation discrimination and fine them $13,000, but here's the kicker, and ordered them, this couple, the Giffords, to implement re-education training classes. Whoa, buddy. Tell me what that means.
It's exactly, you know, what it sounds like. It's terrible. It's very Orwellian, this kind of creepy, like, rehabilitation, re-education, propaganda implementation, if you will. It's so concerning. And essentially what they're doing, you know, are forcing these creative professionals to essentially change the very core of who they are, the teachings to which they, you know, prescribe, under, you know, basically under threat of court order. It's quite unbelievable.
Well, I guess the thing I'm really worried about is, let's just assume it's Deanne and I, okay? And we get sued, and they say, well, you've got to attend these sexual orientation discrimination classes to implement re-education training. Okay, what it is just nothing more than waterboarding through the mind to get me to accept that filthy lifestyle. As a Christian, no Christian could or should submit to that kind of training or being forced to change their ethics and their values. That, to me, is even more illegal than anything.
And right, and to be clear, what we're talking about here is marriage. Marriage is inherently a religious ceremony. It's a religious institution. It is acknowledged as a man-woman union by the major world faiths and religions. So this is something that has been understood and respected as a man-woman union across race, across culture, across time. This has essentially been a no-brainer. And for the government to force individuals to change that belief, and not just change it, but operate consistently with that change, or else, is something that should concern every single American, regardless of where they stand on this issue.
Well, doesn't a business, though, like the Giffords, what would happen if they had a sign posted on their property that says basically the same as restaurants, etc.? We reserve the right to refuse service to da, 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 da. And it's kind of like the no shirt, no shoes, no service. Well, if somebody doesn't wear shoes because they've got bunions, are they going to turn around and sue that cafe? I mean, why doesn't that business have the right of refusal?
Well, it has to do with these laws. They're laws that are sexual orientation and gender identity laws that make it essentially, sexuality essentially like a protected class that you can't, quote unquote, discriminate against. But the problem is this is a gross misinterpretation of these rules and these laws, because it's not about the person themselves. It's about forcing a creative professional to promote and endorse and speak a message with which they disagree, and to create custom work promoting that. So there is really a distinction here in what we're talking about. We're not talking about denying people because of how they identify sexually basic goods and services. Of course not. That would be ridiculous, because why would anyone do that anyway? That doesn't even make any sense. We're talking about the government forcing creative professionals, though, to create custom work around a religious ceremony that directly violates their religion's teachings on that ceremony. So there is a distinction here.
What do you think?
And unfortunately, the courts and these so-called human rights commissions are just mixing it all together, and it's really a gross violation of the First Amendment and one's freedom to speak and freely associate and exercise their religion.
I'm going to take it one step further, and if you don't agree with me, you can tell me. I just look at it as another sledgehammer to the bricks in the building of Christianity and trying to knock down the foundation of what's right and what's wrong in this country. That's the bottom line for me.
Right, and what's really concerning about the way these things are going, we talked. First, it was about tolerance. Then it was acceptance, and now it's forced celebration.
Yeah.
Again, tolerance is a two-way street. There is room for people who have conflicting ideas about lifestyles to live peacefully among each other. There's no reason. It's completely unnecessary to force creative professionals to create custom work for an event with which they just completely disagree, when there are so many other creative professionals who are willing to do it. And so there's not an issue of access. There's not an issue of there's not really an issue, but this particular movement is determined to force people to not just, quote-unquote, tolerate, but to participate in and celebrate it, and use the government to punish them. And the government, is doing that if they don't. And that is so extreme. Again, it just should be concerning to everyone, regardless of where they fall in this particular issue. This is a general freedom issue.
Okay, the last story got my dander up too, and that's about Trinity Lutheran Church of Columbia, Missouri, being told, and they have a parochial school, a church school, and they're probably getting as good or better education as in the public schools, but they applied for some recycled tires for the children's playground, and oh no, you can't have that because we have to have a separation of church and state. Bring us up to speed on this story.
Right, so it's an interesting case. The state of Missouri instituted a program where they award grants to nonprofit organizations to purchase playground surfacing materials made from recycled tires. Apparently, these recycled tire scraps make playgrounds safer. They provide this surface that, when kids are running around, they're less likely to get hurt. And it's also good for the environment, because they reduce the abundance of scrap tires, and they're using it for this, very good cause, and it's been an effective program. And they have certain criteria that you have to meet in order to be eligible, and this particular church that runs a daycare center and preschool applied to be part of the scrap tire grant program. They wanted these scrap tires for their playground as well, for the children that attend their school, and also for the neighborhood children that frequently come onto the property and play on the playground after they get out of school. And the center met all of the criteria, and the state of Missouri highly ranked the center as qualified for the program. But then it denied the center's application solely because the church runs the daycare, solely because they're religious. And unfortunately, the district, so this church, brought a lawsuit. The first court dismissed it, then the appellate court affirmed that dismissal. But the good news is the Supreme Court agreed to hear the case on Friday. So oral arguments haven't been set yet, but it could be, it could be as early as April or as late as October. But it's actually a very good sign that the Supreme Court agreed to take this case because, there is no, the Constitution clearly prohibits the government from showing hostility towards religious groups. You can't treat religious groups and organizations as second-class citizens. That's a violation of the Constitution, and there's no getting around that. So we'll see what the Supreme Court says.
Wow, there's a never-ending supply of worries and stories. What do you think, what are we going to be talking about next week so I can take some more blood pressure medicine?
Well, the March for Life is happening on Friday in D.C., which is a wonderful event. It's the largest pro-life gathering in the world. 500,000 people gather in D.C. by the Capitol building and stand for life, which is wonderful. So that we will certainly be talking about that.
Hey, by the way, I was going to ask you, I didn't get a chance to review the whole story, but I heard last week that Planned Parenthood is trying to reverse the thinking of the American public, and they're going to be suing the video makers and suing for the content. What's going on with that story? Can you bring us up to speed quickly?
Yeah, so I'm actually, I'm not up to speed on that situation yet, but yes, a lawsuit has been filed, and we can certainly talk that more, about that next week on your show. But I will say this. The fact that Planned Parenthood is taking such extreme measures just shows that they know they're in trouble. When Center for Medical Progress took these undercover videos and showed the American people what Planned Parenthood is about, which was what did we see in these videos? We saw top-level Planned Parenthood doctors and executives joking and haggling over the trafficking and selling of baby body parts. It was inhumane, it was sickening, and anybody who watched it and exercised even a shred of intellectual honesty knew how terrible it was.
Absolutely.
So it'll be interesting to see. The Center for Medical Progress has done great work in exposing Planned Parenthood for what they are, and we will see what happens.
Absolutely. Great lady. And thank you, Carrie Kupek with the Alliance Defending Freedom. God bless, and we'll talk to you next Monday. Have a great week.
Thanks. You too.
All right. Take care. Wow, two very interesting stories. The government, the federal government, just getting so involved into telling, well, you can't do that. We're going to run your business. And if you don't agree with the liberal left mindset and the basic acceptance of the lesbian, gay, and transgender mantra, if you will, oh, well, then you have to go in and you'll have to take some mind-altering classes so you can... Are you kidding me? This sounds like Gestapo Germany. Ay, 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 ay. If you don't go along with them, they'll get you. We can't weaken, folks. We can't weaken. It's time for the weather, brought to you by Mountain Transmissions. And Rick and the crew, all makes and models. They can fix cars, trucks, RVs, motorhomes, all their trannies, and they can repair or rebuild. Yes, sirree, Bob. You better stop in and see them today. They're located at 504 East Main in Burley. More than 30 years experience working on transmissions. They know. They know. And the number to call for an appointment, 678-9110. Mountain Transmissions. Here now is Gina with the weather.
Looks like we have a warming trend for this week. Good morning on Zeb at the Ranch. Looks like morning rain showers for today. It is going to be windy. Out of the southwest, right around 14 miles an hour. Expect a high of 39. Tonight, low of 28. Tomorrow, warmer, but still some light rain in the forecast. High of 41 with an overnight low of 33. Looks like partly cloudy skies for Wednesday. High of 37. Mostly sunny and 40. for Thursday, and then cloudy and 41 for Friday. Yesterday's high was 41, and the overnight low was 32. That's your weather for Zeb at the Ranch.
Oh, thank you, Gina. Great job, as always. Don't forget Mountain Transmissions with Rick and the rest of the crew at, of course, 504 East Main in Burley. Number to call, 678-9110. Mountain Transmissions, you call them today. Really good folks. I read something in the paper on yesterday's paper in the Times News that really upset me. And when I stopped to think about it, a lot of things in the Times News really upset me. But have you noticed, and I really want your calls on this morning, those that are concerned like I am, that whether it's the First Amendment with our freedom of speech, whether it's the Second Amendment with the right to preserve and bear arms, or whether it's now looking at a hacking and parsing of the Constitution to remove the natural-born citizen requirement from the Constitution. I'm really afraid of this. Call me old-fashioned, call me an old-timer, call me what you will, but the framework of our Constitution, of the United States of America, the best Constitution ever written for any country, anywhere, has stood the test of time for equality and fairness to all. And to let, now again, maybe you don't agree, but to let a bunch of nincompoops go in and start saying, well, we've got to change this, and we'll have this, and we'll parse these words out, and we'll stop that, and we got to maybe reword the Second Amendment, and then maybe the millennials are saying, well, we want to stop free speech, so we've got to do away with that First Amendment, and then, of course, now it's time to remove, according to some, the natural-born citizen requirement. Wait a minute! What about the great value that Constitution has afforded this country for well over 200 years? I, for one, say absolutely not. No changing of the greatest document ever written. What are your thoughts? Give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. You think that the Constitution's under siege right now? I do. I think our value system in this country is really under siege. Another story that I wanted to comment on quickly is that Social Security, I had a gentleman call last week, and wanted to talk about the budget, and we are going to have someone on later this week talking about Social Security and how there has been literally a robbing, a tyranny, an absolute crime committed against the Social Security Fund, and what's happening to that. We're going to get into that a little bit later on this week if that guest can make it on the program, an expert from back in Washington, D.C. So I want to let you know that we're on top of that and should have more answers. I, for one, am very worried about Social Security. I think people that I've talked to are very worried about Social Security and Medicare. And maybe I'm wrong on this, too. Tell me if you think I am. Every time I hear the word entitlement, I want to just literally get into a scrap with the person that said the word. You know, I've worked since I was basically 14 years old. And I'm not bragging about it, but I've contributed greatly to the system. I could have done a lot better off and been better off if I'd have taken the percentage of money that I had forced to pay into a private account, and oh boy, I'd have been better off today. And I'm a little bit more than nauseated with politicians saying, well, the entitlement programs and all this. What are your thoughts on this? They, the partisan and sometimes the nonpartisan, have robbed the accounts of Social Security and taken the money and given it to causes and events in our government that have absolutely wasted the money. And I'm fed up with it. I know a lot of seniors today that are my age or even a lot older that with hardships that have befallen their families, they just couldn't keep a savings account. They just couldn't keep a bank account. And they're trying to live like misers today with Social Security. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Talk to me, caller, quickly.
Okay. I'm sorry, I was adjusting my volume. I think Social Security is one of the biggest rip-offs that they're ever made for the fact that a lot of people don't understand, like, let's say me and my wife, we've worked all of our lives. If she dies, people don't understand. If she dies before me, Social Security, let's just say the government, takes all the money that she's put into Social Security and they keep it. I get a $200 benefit from all the money she's worked on and accumulated in there, and I think it's the biggest rip-off there is.
Well, tell me something connected to government as far as your savings accounts, your retirement accounts, the money that you draw out, whether it's Social Security. Tell me what the government hasn't expanded upon to make sure that they get their fingers in the pie first and not have any worries about you whatsoever.
You know what? The government doesn't give diddly squat about us, and it's like my friend sent me this deal like your president, I'll say your president, is up there giving a speech and all the congressmen and senators are all standing up and applauding him and stuff. And he says, we ought to watch those videos and all these dumb speeches like Second Amendment, gun control and stuff that he's given, and all your congressmen and senators that you see standing up and applauding him, you ought to go in there and vote them the hell out of there and get them the hell out of there for agreeing with him.
Well, what do you think about the future of Social Security and Medicare, et cetera, in this country? We're $19 trillion in debt, and it's going to probably be in the next 366 days of Obama. It might even escalate to that figure that was proposed of maybe $20 trillion in debt. And they're going to turn around and blame us. They're going to blame the seniors. They're going to blame what they call the entitlement programs. I, for one, am absolutely livid that I don't feel that of all the politicians, we have anybody that's standing up for us.
Well, that's the whole problem. You do not have anybody standing up for you or me, and you know that money that you're throwing out the window, and there ain't nothing you can do about it because they've already got their finger in most of the paychecks, you know. I mean, you'd be better to take that money every paycheck and go down to the casino and put it on Red 17 or whatever and spin the wheel, because you're not getting anything out of it. They're just taking it and using it how they feel they should. Yeah.
And they're probably giving a lot of it to refugee programs. They're probably giving a lot of it to the $150 billion.
Let's not even go there. We know that's where it's going to.
Absolutely. Sir, I appreciate your call. God bless you, man, and best of the future to you. Thank you very much.
Yep, you too.
Thank you. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that gentleman. And, you know, as far as taking my tax dollars and aiding and abetting like $150 billion dollars to Iran, I worked hard for that money. I know it's a minuscule amount, but I don't want it going over to some camel jockey. No way. Coming up next half hour, we've got Speaker of the House, Scott Bedke, and we're going to talk about what's going on at the Idaho Legislative Update for this year. And then at 10:30, another really good guy. I enjoy him. Fred Birnbaum with the Idaho Freedom Foundation is going to be on the program with us, and we're going to talk about federal lands versus state lands, fires, and everything else. So it should be very interesting. You are listening to Zeb at the Ranch on a Monday. Boy, I'm tired this morning. And I hope you're full of vim and vigor. Stay tuned for the CBS News. We'll be back in 6. Potholes potholes, they're all over the place. My goodness sakes, Highway 30 looks like a war zone past my place going west. Woo-wee, deep enough to swallow up an elephant, for heaven's sakes. Good morning, and welcome back to Zeb at the Ranch with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, and all 7 locations. Thank you very much, along with some of our great advertisers like Western Way Services, always at your disposal. Call, get on the route service today, 734-6969. Hey, before we get our guest on, it's time to tell you what's going on at the Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley. Today's special is smoked Gouda, avocado and turkey sandwiches. Smoked Gouda, avocado turkey sandwiches served with choice of side and super salad. Oh my goodness sakes, you're going to have a great time. It's Gouda with smoked Gouda at the Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley. Sounds good. Let's go to the phone line right now, and a man that has been a friend of mine for a long, long time, and a friend to Idaho for a long, long time, Representative and Speaker of the House, Mr. Scott Bedke. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Zeb. How are you doing this morning?
Well, it's hard to imagine John Wayne trading his boots in for wingtip shoes and a 3-piece suit, but there you are.
Well, I do have the suit on, but I still got the boots.
Atta boy. What's going on now that you're in week number 2 of the legislative session? What's happening up there? Something you didn't expect, or is everything going according to Hoyle?
Well, things are going pretty much like they always do. The first couple 3 weeks are mostly taken up by the committees going back through all of the rules that the executive branch agencies have promulgated or written. And so in Idaho, we have the ability as a legislature. We pass the laws, and then we send those to the executive branch, and then to carry out the laws. Well, sometimes when it comes to carrying out those laws, they write rules that have the full force and effect of law to carry out, the different laws, or to try to carry out the intent of the legislature. Well, since those executive branch agency rules have the full force and effect of law, and the legislature didn't pass them, then we go back through them, and if we think that the rules are inconsistent with the original law, then we reject them. And that's an important check and balance that we have here in the state of Idaho. And so for the first 2 or 3 weeks, always, that's what the legislature is doing, is going through these rule dockets. And it's tedious work, but it's important work to keep the executive branch in check and to preserve the balance of powers here in the state. And wouldn't it be nice if the United States Congress had the same ability to go through all of the executive branch agencies, all the EPA rules, all of the, for example, and see if those were consistent with the underlying law. So that's what we're doing right now. So it's not very sexy, and it's hard work, and there's a lot of reading. But I think we catch some things that needed to be caught. And anyway, it makes our rulemaking process fair, and it levels the playing field, because the agencies, they have negotiated rulemaking every year after the legislature leaves, and so those that are going to be affected by the rule come in and sit down with the, maybe the Department of Ag, it may be the Department of Environmental Quality or whatever it is, or Health and Welfare, and they sit down with the affected citizens, and they come and they have a place at the table to write these rules. And if it ever gets heavy-handed, then they come to the legislature, and when we review the rule the following session, then we can reject those rules, and they have to start all over again. So it's an important check and balance on the system, and that's what we're doing right now.
Scott, let me ask you this. I had a lady call me last week after the program on Thursday, and I had announced that you were going to probably be on our show this Monday. And she said, I'd like to know exactly what the Speaker of the House does. What are his duties, and what's a day in the life of the Speaker of the House while the session's in? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the Speaker is an elected position, but it's elected by the House of Representatives. So I as well as Fred Wood, we're the representatives for Cassia and Minidoka County, and we're elected just like all the other legislators are. But then the House of Representatives has an election here, and so they have chosen me, and this will be the fourth year to be the Speaker of the House. And I, so under our rules and under the Constitution, it's or the Speaker, and it's. I'm very flattered and humbled to be in this office and be in this chair, and because they put a lot of trust in whomever is the Speaker, and because he makes all the committee assignments, he assigns all of the bills to the various committees, works closely with the governor and with the Senate to assure that the legislation is moving or sometimes not moving. And that's basically what the Speaker does, but it's elected by the House of Representatives. Mm-hmm. And in Idaho, we have a supermajority of Republicans in the House of Representatives, and so whomever the Republican caucus chooses to be the Speaker usually carries the day when you have the official vote on the floor with both parties. So anyway, that's what I do. I don't serve on any of the committees as the Speaker like I did before. But I make all the committee assignments and try to keep balance in each of the committees, try to not have it biased one way or the other, and to have regional balance, so that there's just as many people from northern Idaho as eastern Idaho or from the Treasure Valley. And I end up fielding a lot of requests. I end up fielding a lot of complaints. Everybody, there's always seems like there's always no shortage of folks that want to come in and tell me how to do the job. So anyway, that's kind of what I do.
Scott, let me ask you this question, and I'm sure it gets asked every day by the other media while you're in session. But whether it's the water issues, whether it's education, whether it's how to fund the infrastructure of our state, what other issues are you very concerned that may take a lot of time to settle during this session?
Well, I'm glad you brought up the water thing. We have been in the middle of crafting a historic settlement between the senior surface water right holders and the junior groundwater right holders. And so we want to make sure that the state steps up and does its responsibility, which is to fund a managed recharge program. So there's that. I think that you'll see us this year following through on the commitments that we made last year for the education, the K-12 teacher career ladder. I think there'll be some other things that will come up. Probably permitless carry or so-called constitutional carry of firearms. I do want to put back on the ballot this ability to do rules review that I described earlier. We only do that now in Idaho based on a Supreme Court decision, and it was a split decision. It was a 3-2 decision, and I think that is so important to maintain the checks and balances, the separation of powers between the legislature and the executive branch. Although we get along well with the governor now, but I don't know that will always be the case, and frankly shouldn't ever be the case. I mean, we need to do our job. He needs to do his job, But this rules review needs to be put into the state's constitution so that is always a protection that all citizens forever will have, I guess, until they choose to change the Constitution. We put it on 2 years ago, but it's such, it's hard to explain, and people didn't really understand what it did and how important it was. So I believe we'll put it on again this year and continue the conversation. We can do that every 2 years until we're able to, and it's not a sexy issue, and there's not a lot of money behind it. There's no money behind it, but it's something that citizens, we take for granted, and I think that we need to do that. So, things that are going to come from left field, I don't know. There's always talk of, there's always a group that wants to, add the words of sexual orientation, gender identity to state code. There's others that would like to beef up the religious protections, so there's someone, because of his religious affiliation or his religious convictions, chooses not to serve someone or take their pictures or bake their cake or something like that. And I think in the perfect world, the two sides ought to compromise on something like they did in Utah. But here in Idaho, I think those sides are so far apart that I don't see that happening. Anyway, that's kind of what we're going to do here. The most important thing we do is set the budget.
Right.
And we're running a little ahead of where we thought we would be, so there's a little extra money, so everyone is coming, so there's a lot of requests, and we'll have to tell a bunch of people no, so that we can set a budget and that, that doesn't overextend ourselves into going into the future.
Let me ask you this question, and I think it's going to be a problem this year more so than it has been the last couple of years, and that's the repaving of our infrastructure, our roads and byways, our bridges. Everything is falling apart. If you've driven past my place to go to Twin Falls on Highway 30, man, you had to kind of elude potholes that would swallow a 3/4-ton truck. This thing is going to get worse instead of gets better, and it's going to be very expensive. Do we have the money for that?
Well, I think that we do. We could always, they always could use more. At least that's what they tell us. But last year we did pass the 7-cent gasoline tax. We did raise the registration fees a little bit, and then we set aside half of the surplus, so that from the general fund. We didn't spend all of the money, and we left some in the checkbook. And so half of that was dedicated to go to roads. So they got about $150 million more going to the roads than they did the previous year. And so, and yes, I've been down Highway 30. I've driven past your house, and I do know the problems there. I think that but that Highway 30 is in better shape than Golden Valley Road was. Mm-hmm. And, so these county roads that are out there, a couple of things. We're going to have to, the users of those roads cannot run overweight. And particularly when the base is wet and is thawing and freezing and thawing and freezing, and then taking I don't care whether it's a 10-wheeler manure truck or a tanker full of milk or whatever it is, we have got to take care of these things because they're so much more expensive to replace than to repair.
Absolutely.
And but the freeway system. I mean, there are several lane closures on the way between Burley and Boise and then all it is where the asphalt is failing, chuck holes, if you will.
Absolutely.
So it's a never-ending battle in the West where you have the weather that we do.
There's a caller on the air with a question. Go ahead, caller, quickly, please, for Speaker Bedke.
Yes, I was wondering if we couldn't straighten out the time in the state of Idaho, make it all one time, and make it so we wouldn't have to change our clocks in the fall and in the spring. Could we do that, or is that something
Well, it's something we can do. We can, and that's a good question, and that has come up. It came up last year. Here's what we found out. If Idaho chooses to fall back and stay back, in other words, we just stay at standard time, then we can do that. But we cannot go to daylight savings time and stay at daylight savings time based on federal law. So the whole system of time zones and daylight savings, that's come down. That's a federal law, and so there's some states that don't change, and I can think of Arizona's one, and I believe Indiana and some of the other, those come to mind. And what they do is they just choose not to participate in the savings in daylight savings time, and they stay at standard time year round. And that's something that we could certainly do, but we can't go to daylight savings time and stay at daylight savings time without a change in the federal regulation, and that came in, early. Well, starting I believe during World War I, and anyway, then the time zones are all federally mandated, and you can probably, if you think about it, you can probably see a reason for that to be standardized across the United States, and so. Anyway, that's where we are.
All right, caller.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you very much, caller.
Would it be possible to do that where we can have it the standard time?
Yeah, it is possible to do that. I certainly, I can't do it unilaterally as the speaker, but if some legislator wanted to bring a bill that mandated that Idaho just stay on standard time, that we could do that. What we can't do is go to daylight savings and stay on daylight savings.
I understand that.
Okay, caller.
Okay, and then you got the two time zones in Idaho, and that's somewhat problematic as well. But changing those time zone lines is a federal call and not the state's call.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much, caller. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Scott, let me ask you this. I'm down to the last couple of minutes, but there seemed to be in the paper this last weekend a big push to inform us about 4 pages of coverage or more about Craters of the Moon becoming a national park. Is there a benefit to the state of Idaho and to us to be a national park? What are the pros and cons on this?
Well, on the face, there's some, I think there's some attraction to having a state, a national park in Idaho. But I think that's about as far as it goes, at least from my perspective. I cannot think of a less flexible federal agency than the National Park Service. I mean, they are completely inflexible. Just ask those that do business around Yellowstone Park or Teton National Park or Glacier. So the traditional industries there, whether they're grazing or even tourism, snowmobiling, any of the motorized recreation, whether it's endangered species, the areas around these parks become the buffer zones for the parks, and their influence and their authority extends out from there. And so while the Craters of the Moon is a very unique spot, and it's been a national monument since 1924, taking the next step to a national park, I don't think that the benefits from my perspective outweigh the downside, and I guess I would love to discuss it with those that that think differently. But I know that those county commissioners up there, there was one set that thought it was a good idea. There was a resolution that came through here last year. It made it through the Senate. It was stopped in the House, and but there was not local support there, and for many of these same reasons that I'm talking about. If you the Targhee National Forest is right up against the Yellowstone Park, and just some of the things that they're required to do because they butt up against the park and some of the restrictions that are there are from my perspective, I don't think that it's worth it.
Let me interrupt you and ask you a question there real quick, Scott. You mentioned, is there a supposed buffer zone around a national park that could be an influence, good or bad, on private activities, whether it's ranching, farming, etc.?
Well, yes, there is, and they always try to extend that. I mean, the Yellowstone bison herd, for example, has brucellosis or bangs, and so that they do not control it, nor do they wish to, and so that definitely affects those cattle herds and the elk that are coming in and out of the park. Anyway, yeah, that's just for one.
Right.
That's just one, and the whatever logging or post and pole activities up against the park. That's another. I'm well acquainted with some former Forest Service officials that were in the Targhee, and they do not think it's a good idea. So
all right.
That's kind of what I'm going on.
I want to say thank you. I know you've got a very busy schedule, and you took about 25 minutes of your time to be on our program today, and we thank you so much. Speaker of the House, Scott Bedke from Oakley, thank you, and I'll look forward to having you back in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, one of your legislators will be on this program a week from today, and I'll take my turn in a week or so.
All right, okay. Scott, thank you so much. God bless, and appreciate your time.
All right. Well, thank you, Zeb.
You bet. Take care.
We'll talk to you later.
Thank you very much. I know they're very, very busy up there with all the activities, and he's got to get right back on the House floor, and we certainly appreciate him. Speaker of the House, Representative Scott Bedke, thank you very much. And that is your Idaho legislative update for today. Right now, let's mention, too, that on Thursdays, we have a segment called Cassia County School Days, and it's brought to you by two wonderful groups. A Child's World at 1308 Overland in Burley. And, oh my goodness sakes, they've got that sale going on of all their winter items, 40 to 50% off on clothes and hats and coats. And they've got all the toys and the games and the puzzles. They've got everything for you to buy a gift for somebody else. And especially for the grandparents and everybody to go on in there and find just what you want to give the wee ones. All at A Child's World, 1308 Overland in Burley. And by the way, I also want to comment and say thank you very much to an ambulatory surgery center at 1344 Highland Avenue in Burley. Now, you can literally save hundreds and hundreds of dollars by going for your outpatient surgery to the Ambulatory Surgery Center in Burley. Call for more information. They can help you, and they will, at 677-8888. Ambulatory Surgery Center and A Child's World, bringing you school days in Cassia County at 10:10 on Thursdays. We're going to take a little bit of a break and then come back, and we're going to have Fred Birnbaum on the program from the Idaho Freedom Foundation. He is the vice president. We're going to have him on air this morning for about 20-30 minutes. And right now we're going to send it back to my old compadre Wheels at the main studio. Don't you go away. I'll be back in about 3 minutes.
And now back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Oh, thank you very much, and welcome back to the last half hour of our program this morning. I had this next gentleman on our program about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and I was very, very excited to ask him to come back again. He's with the Idaho Freedom Foundation as the vice president up in Boise, and his name is Mr. Fred Birnbaum. Fred, good morning. Good to have you back on the show.
Thank you, Zeb. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I was really impressed with what you had to say, and I was reading the mission statement of the Idaho Freedom Foundation, and boy, I can't find anything wrong with this. Your goal is to hold public servants and government programs accountable, expose government waste, boy, there's a lot of that, and cronyism, reduce the state's dependency on the federal government, good luck, and inject fairness and predictability into the state's tax system. Wow, you've got quite a task on behalf of your organization.
Well, there is a lot to do. Someone's got to do it, and IFF is really the only statewide organization fighting for the things that you just outlined. And we're very passionate about these things, and particularly passionate about the notion that Idaho would be better off if we were less dependent on the federal government. And I'm going to detail some of those reasons this morning.
You go right ahead. We were talking on the phone, just to let my audience know before I had you back on this time. And we're going to be talking about fires and other issues. So, Fred, I'm going to let you pick the topics and kind of run with it. Go ahead, sir.
Well, Zeb, I think I want to come back to an issue we talked a bit about last week, and I was going to go into a little more detail, because there had been a number of articles in the local papers making fun of Idaho legislators and the climate change issue.
Right.
And the left is very effective at doing this. They try to use climate change as a club to beat and embarrass opponents, so they don't have to talk about the real issues that government is failing to do. I'll give you a specific example. This past year, 2015, was the worst fire season since the National Interagency Fire Center has been keeping detailed records. Over 10 million acres burned in the U.S. and a roughly 800,000 burned in Idaho. And their answer is, gee, it's climate change. Climate change is driving tree growth, and it's drying out the West. And what we need is more money and climate change policies. And that is so misguided. I do want to inform your readers as to why. I don't want to just say it, and I'm not going to be quoting other hosts of shows. I'm going to actually be going to data, and that's what I really like to do. So if you look at the data over the last 30 years, over 150 million acres have burned in the West. The best data we have suggests that each year about 290 million tons, metric tons, of carbon is put into the atmosphere. So you have people who are talking about climate change as being terrible, yet we have these fires that are putting a tremendous amount of smoke and other particulates as well as carbon into the atmosphere. Now let me push back on their notion that this is climate change. And here's why I dispute that. Even if you believe that the climate was leading to more tree growth, the anecdote to that would be practicing good forest management practices, such as thinning and logging. Logging is down on U.S. Forest Service land since the peak 90%. It's down 90%. You can go to their own data. I'm not making any of this up. So they've cut less trees. There's more fuel load. We have more fires. They sidestep the issue, try to blame it on climate change. Their own data shows from 85 to 99 in the West, about 3.2 million acres burned every season. From 2000 to 2014, it's 6.6 million. And they try to separate that increase in fires from the fact that less timber has been cut on federal lands. It's just ridiculous. And I think the American people and the people of Idaho need to hear that.
But you know, Fred, I don't care if it's the climate change issue. I don't care if it has to do with Social Security. I don't care if it's Medicare issues. I don't care if it's our security here in this country in general. We're being duped by a government that wants one 7-letter word, more control. Would you agree with that?
100%. And I think the control of public lands is clear evidence of that. They are allowing less and less local control and less local access when it comes to off-road vehicles, hunting, you name it, fishing. They're restricting access, and they're also restricting the economic use of those lands. They're doing both, And they use all sorts of excuses. They use environmental policy as excuses. They come up with a myriad of reasons. But absolutely, they are exercising more control. And here's the worst part. The results are terrible. I mean, if they had good results for more control, they might have an argument. But they've increased the control, and the results are worse, unless they think doubling of fires is a positive result. By their own standards, the land isn't healthy. So why would we want to give them more control? And the answer is we don't.
You know, you said two key words right there that really piqued my interest, and that's restricted access. Little by little, inch by inch, step by step, mile by mile, the Forest Service, the BLM, the federal government in general, taking away our public lands. And we, as the American taxpayers, we seem to sit back and say, oh, well, somebody's got to do something about it. And you are that somebody, but everybody's got to help, right, Fred?
That's correct. What you said two very important things, Seb. The thing that they've done very effectively is the little by little. If in 1976, when the Federal Land Policy and Management Act passed, they had jumped in a year to the restrictions that we have now, they'd cut down logging, they'd done it over the course of 1 or 2 years, people would be up in arms. But they've done it slowly and steadily. They've done it over the last 2 generations, and people notice, but it doesn't seem as dramatic as if they'd done it overnight. They have a strategy. It's gradualism. Gradually restrict access, gradually exert more control, gradually reduce the economic output of these lands, and gradually push people off of them. And they're doing it very effectively, and you can see the disastrous results when you see desperate communities in areas that used to have timber jobs, or you see people who are burned out of their livelihoods. And I want to mention one other thing when you talked about the federal government and how they behave. So people are probably familiar who listen to your show with the standoff in Oregon. I don't think those are necessarily the best tactics. But what's interesting to me is that the Hammonds were charged, sentenced, and being resentenced over 140 acres of federal land that burned adjacent to their land. Yet the federal government has done its own prescribed burns that have gotten out of control, including one in South Dakota that burned over 11,000 acres. Nobody was held accountable within the federal bureaucracy. And the people that wanted some compensation, they didn't get any. So this is part of this control where they do what they want and don't hold themselves accountable. And when citizens push back, they get stepped on. And this has been going on in the West for 30 or 40 years. You have ranchers, you have people who have grazing permits, a very small infraction, and a ton of bricks falls on them. If the federal government will do things like put together a prescribed burn that gets out of control, or the Animas River spill in Colorado. Can you imagine if a private company had released that toxic plume into the Animas River that the EPA did? And as far as I know, there's been no public rebuke of any individual employee at the EPA.
Yeah.
And this is part of the process where they use 2 sets of standards. They operate independently of real oversight, and they scrutinize what the average citizen does and hold their feet to the fire. So, yes, we do need to push back. And I've kind of come to the conclusion that we need a long and a short game. The long game is ultimately to transfer these public lands to the state of Idaho or the other states that have public lands. But the short game, we have to come up with legislation and other activities that highlight the mismanagement and hold local Forest Service and BLM supervisors accountable.
But Fred, herein lies the problem. We have a very liberal left media. Look at right here in Twin Falls with the Times News. I mean, with their different sections on climate change, and then basically coming out against the state acceptance of federal lands to manage the lands properly and do a much better job. Well, how do we overcome a very liberally biased media?
Well, that's I wish I had the answer to that, Seb. I think just to answer the first question about the climate change, I think what people have to do, your listeners and others, they have to write rebuttal letters to the editor. I mean, we do that at IFF. And I think the Heartland Institution wrote a rebuttal that was in the paper on the climate change issue.
Right.
So you have to make those media folks, whether it's TV, print, radio, when they say something like that, we have to push back. And I try to do that, and we try to do that here in Boise. And I have to be honest with you, it's very hard because you really can't embarrass many of these people. They're so committed ideologically to liberalism that even when you catch them in an outright lie or fabrication, they just dodge the issue. So I don't have a really good answer other than never let a misstatement of fact go unchallenged. Somebody has to pick up a pen, and when that somebody is one of your listeners, somebody who reads that paper, and they have to push back. And it might even include talking to the publisher or the owner if it's a paper where the ownership is local, not a national chain. Say, look, you ran this whole thing on climate change. It was very one-sided. You were just trying to embarrass legislators. You didn't talk to scientists, yes, scientists, who have differing points of view on climate change. You just cited a few things as if it was a foregone conclusion and then just talked about how this foregone conclusion would impact the state. So that's what we have to do. We have to be very specific when we push back and be factual. And that's why when I came onto your show and I was reading off all those numbers, some people think, my gosh, is that all Fred does is read numbers? People need to hear the facts. The facts are on our side, Zeb. I've been looking at this sort of stuff for 30 years. As a business person, as an individual, the facts are on our side. We have to message them better, but I believe the facts are on our side.
But you know, the problem we have today here in the state of Idaho, whether it's with the wolf issue, which is now expanding into some of our neighboring states to where those folks are feeling the pain that we've felt with the reintroduction of these carnivore killers, whether it's the sage grouse issue, whether it's water issues, it doesn't make any difference. It seems there's a concentrated effort to take us off the land, and we've got to fight back because we're in the 11th hour.
I completely agree, and there's a push now by the U.S. Forest Service to take away water rights or to make them joint water rights. So historically, water rights went with the permit holder for livestock. And the federal government since 2004 has just adopted the position that these are joint water rights. They don't belong to the livestock holder of the permit. And if that permit is canceled for any reason, the rights don't revert to Idaho or other beneficial users. They become the property of the U.S. federal government. You're absolutely right. They've done everything they can. And by the way, the pushback that we've attempted hasn't really worked. So from that perspective, I think what we have to do is highlight it. We have to create a broad-based movement which says, look, to sportsmen and others who are concerned that these lands would be restricted or sold to private interests, we have to tell folks, look, there is some risk if you transfer lands from the federal to the state government, but we have to do it in a way that makes these public lands continue to be publicly accessed lands. But we cannot take the greater risk of allowing the federal government to continue its control because of all the things that you mentioned and I mentioned. They're restricting access and use, water rights, the firefighting is terrible, the fires are getting greater, it's harder and harder to cut trees, it's very hard to do any mining. So the path that they're on will make it very hard to be a rural resident in Idaho, and that's the bottom line, and that's actually their goal. They want forced urbanization. They want to have people only come visit these lands, not work them. And unless we push back in 10 or 20 years, that will be accomplished.
You know, when we talk about dangers that I'm really afraid of, it's the EPA and their almost insidious, very criminal powers that they're trying to exert on all of us. How can you and I and others stand up against an organization that assumed all this power and, quite frankly, all the money?
Great question, Zeb. The best way, and Congress started to do this, of course, they've been backing off, And this is really the way that you can get the attention of any federal agency, and that is use Congress to cut off their funds or reduce their funding. So when the Forest Service or the EPA does things that we don't like, we have to have our congressmen reduce their appropriation. It's just that simple. You have to squeeze the money supply to these agencies. I don't think you can negotiate with them until you've done that. So that's what I would suggest. I think that's a very specific action. When a federal agency misbehaves, you reduce the money it gets. Now, the agency might try to retaliate and claim they can't do any of their work, they won't issue permits, but you have to be ready to lock horns with them. Then you reduce their funding even more. You have to really make them feel the pain. And that's how you do it. You don't try to get them to interpret NEPA or their other policies more reasonably. That won't get their attention. They'll nod their head and say, sure, we want to collaborate. But at the end of the day, the outcomes will be mostly the same. There are some exceptions. So I think the way you do it is by squeezing their funding.
Let me ask you this real quick, and I'm almost out of time, Fred. With that being said about the EPA and the funding, etc., we supposedly have Congressman Mike Simpson that sits as the chair on that board to allocate the funding for the EPA. Why aren't people like him standing up and saying, no, we're not going to do this? Why aren't they trying to get national attention and exposure on the news and say what the insidious moves of the EPA are? I haven't heard Mike on TV in a long time.
Well, I can't speak for Congressman Simpson. I'll tell you what the problem, though, in general with a lot of Republican congressmen. You know, they have a lot to cover, or just conservatives. I won't even say Republicans, or just people who are reasonable, moderates, independents. And clearly, many on the left actually love what the EPA is doing. They hope they do more of it. I think the problem is that these agencies are professionals at doing end runs around Congress, around threatening things that people do need or want if they don't get everything they want. So, for example, Obama says, if you don't give me the spending I want, I'll shut down the parks and the passport offices. So I think the executive branch in general, and these very aggressive agencies in particular, have figured out how to threaten the few things that they do that we actually need them to do if we don't give them everything they want. So they've got a very powerful tactic that they use, which is give us what we want or we will make life miserable for you wherever we can. And it's terrible that our government agencies are actually working against the interests of American citizens and working for their own benefit, but that's what's happening. But if you're going to, there's an old saying, Zeb, if you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly. And we have to fight them tooth and claw. And we have to tell them, look, this is going to be a 10-year, every year you're going to beg for money, and we're going to give you less and less. And I actually believe if they think that we won't acquiesce, they'll back down.
Real quick, I've only got about a minute left in this segment, Fred. What about the Idaho Freedom Foundation? I know that you need funds to keep things rolling and keep this in front of the public eye. Tell us quickly.
If your listeners go to idahofreedom.org, they'll see our website. We have a donate page. We have a lot of information. We write about federal lands and other issues. We'd love for your listeners to take a look at what we do. We'd love for them to give us suggestions or advice or tell us what's important to them. And we certainly would appreciate their donations because we don't take any government money. We're all privately funded.
Vice President of the Idaho Freedom Foundation and a good guy, Fred Birnbaum. Fred, come back again soon. I've enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Seth.
All right, sir. Fred Birnbaum, Vice President, Idaho Freedom Foundation, and we'll have him back in the next couple of weeks for another return engagement here on the radio. Oh, my goodness, we've got to get the weather forecast in here. And the weather is brought to you by Scarro's Meats. Delicious. Whether it's beef or pork or chicken, my goodness sakes, the very best from Scarro's Meats. Absolutely. And all you have to do to get a hold of them is call 324-7657, and they're located at 331 North Road, Jerome. Scarro's Meats. It means excellence. Absolutely. Here's Gina with the weather.
Looks like we have a warming trend for this week. Good morning on Zeb at the Ranch. Looks like morning rain showers for today. It is going to be windy. Out of the southwest, right around 14 miles an hour. Expect a high of 39, tonight low of 28. Tomorrow, warmer, but still some light rain in the forecast. High of 41 with an overnight low of 33. Looks like partly cloudy skies for Wednesday. High of 37, mostly sunny, and 40 for Thursday, and then cloudy and 41 for Friday. Yesterday's high was 41, and the overnight low was 32. That's your weather for Zeb at the Ranch.
She does a great job putting that weather together for us. Thank you very much, Scarrows Meats, the sponsor of our weather this hour. Don Scarrow and the rest of the crew, oh my goodness, they guarantee everything they sell, and everything they sell is delicious. They're located at 331 North Road, Jerome. The number to call, 324-7657. Oh, my. Let's see. I've got time for another call if you want to give me a jingle real quick. And while I'm waiting for your call that I'm sure is coming in, don't forget our friends, our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you. We're not done with winter yet. We got a lot of it left. And you be sure and check out all the performance traction tires for your vehicle. Whether it's the studded tires, whether it's the snow treads, whether, of course, you need tire chains or the snow wheels, they've got it all to get you through the snow, the ice, and the muck and the yuck out there. And don't forget, for all your tires, for all your vehicles, stop in and talk to them about your driving needs. Also, the best in brake service, very, very best in brake service, and, of course, front-end alignment, shocks and struts, and batteries. My goodness, yes, all 7 locations serving you with the best. Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, John on Poline in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland and Burley. I said they're the best, and they are. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Let's see, what have we got cooking for tomorrow on the program? Let me get my book over here real quick. We have Frosty Woldridge at 9:06 after the first hour, 8:06 to 9, open forum. Then we're going to have John LeBoutelier, and you can see him on the Fox News Channel every Sunday at about 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 5:30 here. John LeBoutelier is going to be telling us about Trump, and he's going to be telling us about all the different things that are going on with Bernie Sanders, etc. That should be an interesting little segment. Then, of course, at 10:06 tomorrow morning, Dr. History will be back here in the studio, so we're looking forward to that. Always a great story every week on Tuesdays. And then at 10:30, we're going to be talking to a lady by the name of Tanya Barton, and she's going to be on our program for the 10:30 half hour. All of that and your calls are appreciated at Zeb at the Ranch. Now, let's see, what else have I got cooking here? I had a couple of calls and people said, how do we get a hold of the Cow Pies and Coffee Cups blog that I put out once a week? All you have to do is go to zebbell.com and you'll see a bunch of things to press on, and then enter your email address and we'll make sure that we get it sent to you. It's really grown in popularity. Thank you so much for all your help, and to those that are getting it and have sent so many kind notices, thank you very much. Cow Pies and Coffee Cups, and just go to zebbell.com. Okay? That, I think, is going to wrap it up for today, and we're going to be back here again tomorrow starting at 8:06 right here on K-Bar 1230 a.m. and then streaming live on zebbell.com. Wait a minute. Yep, Zeb at the Ranch, zebbell.com. You can tune it in, listen to it anywhere around the United States. And I want to say thanks to Wheels. Wheels, I'm glad that you had such a great weekend. You did a great job this morning. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:06. Be there, buddy, okay?
Will do.
All right. Take it away. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:06. And remember, the way things were are the way things ought to be.